Hi, my name is Wes Lawton. I am a grief counselor with Hospice of Michigan, and I cover Macomb County. And I'm here to take you through some of the content from our most recent Men Overcoming Loss group. Since this is our first time providing this recording as a resource, I would like to just briefly take you through what Men Overcoming Loss is, in case you're not familiar with it. So Men Overcoming Loss is a pretty unique group. I don't know of any others that are quite like it in a couple of different ways. First of all, as the name implies, it is a group for men to join with alongside other men and share their grief journeys with other men. We find that many men are most comfortable with other men, and they can identify with one another. They've got that major commonality, and so that in itself is a resource. And additionally, the group also takes place statewide at 4 of our different office locations. We're looking to be adding more in the future in different parts of the Lower Peninsula. And it takes place at those locations all at the same time. And then it also takes place online. And how that looks is the first part of the group is all online over Zoom, the video client that I'm using to record this now. And so we start off with some brief introductions. There are guys in some of our office locations. There are guys in the comfort of their own home. Some have joined via their computer, some of them via their phone with video chat, or maybe they've called in. And so all across the state, we're together. We're doing a little bit of introducing of one another as well as of the group. And then we jump into some educational material, which is what I'm going to be presenting to you here today. And that goes on for about 45, 50 minutes or so. For the next 10, 15 minutes of that hour, there's a little bit more sharing and how might this kind of content apply to you and your life and your journey. And the educational part is interactive as well. Then when that hour finishes, any men who have joined with their phones or their computers or any, I guess, mobile device or anything, they're finished and they go on with their evening. Any of the men who have opted to join at our physical locations at one of those 4 offices, they go on with a trained facilitator who is there. I'm in Bloomfield Hills for these groups, as well as any other men who are at that location in their local area. And they process a little bit more deeply, a little more personally about, again, how the group may have impacted them or whatever else may be on their mind at that time, just for a little bit longer, and go home from there. So there are quite a few different options, and yet it's all one group that takes place once a month. So I'll give you a little more information about that at the end of the meeting and how you can participate in that. But what I'm doing now is a new resource we're making available for men who have come to the group and would like to review the educational material, or for guys who couldn't make it to the group, or potentially women who would like to view the material and maybe apply it to men in their life, or I suppose to themselves if that's what they choose to do. But primarily for men who could or couldn't make it to the group and would like to get that material to look over on their own time. And so the plan is to upload this to YouTube and then share it. And we've got an email distribution list that you can join. And again, I'll tell you more about that. But let me go ahead and jump into the material, and I'll try to make this helpful, but also as brief as I can. And so I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation that we've got here. And it's right here. All right. So I am hoping that you can see the presentation. So again, Men Overcoming Loss, it's part of Hospice of Michigan and Arbor Hospice, the North Star Care Community. One thing that we do also make clear at the beginning of each group is that it's not a therapy group, it's not counseling, it's not a replacement for any of those things. It's a support group, and it's primarily, in addition to this educational, this information, it's men supporting other men. And but if anybody out there who's viewing this would like to get connected with a counselor or therapist, that kind of a group or whatever professional, you can let us know. And again, I'll put our contact info at the end. So the information for this group was about the holiday season, coping with the holidays. And again, some issues that may be specific to men. Some of it can be generalized to anyone. And one thing we often try to emphasize in this group is, of course, the stuff that we're talking about as it pertains to men, we're painting with a broad brush. We're talking in generalities. Not all men are going to identify with all of these things depending on their cultural background and just who they are. But hopefully, most of it hits home for most men who take part in the group. So that kind of a disclaimer as well. So the first area that we talked about was some different ways that men can often feel during the holidays. And again, a lot of this applies to anyone. During the holidays, you may feel like you're going crazy. And that may have been the case before you lost your loved one, but it's compounded by the loss of your loved one. You may feel like it's a step backwards in your grief journey. Maybe you lost your loved one a number of months ago, and you get to the holidays, or even a whole year ago or whatever, and you get to the holiday season, whether that's Christmas or any of the holidays around this time of year, or maybe it's your loved one's birthday, or maybe it would have been your anniversary, or for many people it's the year anniversary of the death. This material can apply to any of those kinds of special days, but certainly the holiday season around December is what we're focusing on. And around those times, you can feel like maybe if you've been making progress, feel like you're moving backwards. Maybe you're crying more often. Maybe you're getting more stressed or angry or whatever your symptoms are of grief. And that's normal. So I just want to say that that's normal. And once the holiday passes, a lot of times you may feel like you get back on track. During the holidays, you may feel like you should be feeling like everyone else. And I'm thinking especially around this time of year, there's the sort of cliche, cheer up, it's Christmas, that you see in movies or may hear from others in your life. And that's a sort of message that we might hear all over the place, on TV, on the radio, wherever. And so you feel even more than usual. You feel like you are more down than you should be, and you might feel bad about that. You may feel like nobody understands you. Again, going along with other people in your life, they may be focusing on family get-togethers or cheerful traditions, and they may say things to you that they think are helpful. Have a great Christmas or whatever it is. And they're not helpful. In fact, they may be hurtful. So you can feel very misunderstood by others, particularly around this time of year. Another common feeling is, I'll never feel better. That goes back to what I had said a moment ago about I'm not getting better. So I'll never feel better. It can feel like this season is really dragged out. Maybe it starts in mid-November going up to Thanksgiving and continues on through the holiday season up through the new year or whatever. So it can feel like it's lasting a long time and longer than it should. But again, based on what I've seen and what I know, you can generally expect things to get back on track, as it were, or to continue to move forward is a better way of saying it, once the holiday season passes. So a lot of this material is really about making it through that time. And I may feel abandoned, and I put a little star there to remind myself that I want to share a little bit about what some of the participants in the group, or what Will, the co-facilitator, or I myself shared in the group. So throughout this video, I'll be sharing some things that were shared in the group so that you can also benefit from this. I believe it was Will who shared about a gentleman that he knew in the Traverse City area who he had been working with, and his wife died. And of course, very sad, and he got into the holiday season. And, around that time, his neighbors also, because of the death of his wife, he and his wife had known the neighbors on a sort of a couple-to-couple basis. That was how they connected. That's how many people connect. Just like, you move through life, you connect with other people in similar stages of life or who have that common ground. And when his wife died, his neighbors also lost touch with him. That's sort of a natural thing that happens, but it can be especially difficult, and particularly during this time of year, if that's when your death occurs or if it's your first time through. You may feel like the people who have always been there for you and who you've always connected with are nowhere to be found. They're off doing their own thing. So that's a common thing, unfortunately. And if you're feeling it, then that is quite normal. It doesn't make it easier necessarily. And feel like you should be over this by now. Um, the holidays can be a special time of throwing into relief how much time has passed. I think especially about the new year, and we're all reflecting, or we're thinking about the previous Christmas or whatever it is for us, and we start thinking about how much time has gone by since our loved one died, and how hard of a time you may still be having. Um, and so that's a normal thing to be thinking, and we'll be talking more about that shortly. The last one that we've got here is you can feel like you are a burden. I have heard from several people recently in my work here as a grief counselor with hospice that people, it's especially common, maybe they've lost their spouse and they're not going to get together with their family members like they usually do, their children, in many cases, because they don't want to bring them down. And in some cases, for some people, that is the right call, not because they don't want to bring their loved ones down, but for other reasons. But I would say that feeling like you're a burden to others is this isn't the best time to be focusing on that. Right now, you need support. And so if you have loving family or others in your life who are there to support you, now is the time to take advantage of that. So again, we'll get more into self-care a little bit later. So what makes grief during the holidays especially difficult? Again, you can see some stars here. So I'll be sharing some of the material from the groups that individuals shared. Anticipation. This is something that I had said. I think of a movie quote from the film Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I don't know why it stuck with me. I just like how it's said. One of the main characters says that his philosophy is that whoever worries suffers twice. And I think that that is a good way of saying what a lot of people experience and what I've heard from individuals who are going through grief. They may have Christmas coming up, or they may have the anniversary of their loved one's death coming up, and they're thinking about it and they're replaying things in their mind, and they're very anxious about the day that is approaching, and they know it's going to be difficult. And then the day comes and goes and they make it through using some of the coping techniques that we're going to be talking about. And then they report back to me and they say that the anticipation of the day itself was worse than the day was. We had another gentleman in our group share that he thought that the first Christmas was going to be the hardest for him. And for many people it is, but for him, it actually wasn't that bad. However, the second one, which he expected to be even easier than the first, hit him like a ton of bricks. The second one was much harder than he anticipated. So that just all goes to show that you don't know exactly how you're going to be reacting to that special day, to the holiday. And so anticipating it and particularly worrying about it is really kind of self-sabotaging, as common as it is. And there can be a lot of extra grief triggers during the holiday season, things that remind you of especially wonderful times that you miss, or especially difficult times that bring you pain to think about even now. I think about our group and all of the men who attended. I think that there were 3 or 4 different lost loved ones represented. All of them had their loved one's birthday in December as well, which was a pretty crazy coincidence. And so they had that extra grief trigger. The birthday may have been one, or you could also say that they had compounding holidays to worry about. They would go right from one to the next one. And so whether it's your loved one's birthday or whatever that trigger is, that can make it especially hard. Loss of relationship. And, this speaks to the idea that during this time of year, not only have you lost the relationship of your loved one in the way that you are used to having them around, but also you have maybe lost other relationships in your life, going back to feeling abandoned. And stress, the holidays can be an especially stressful time. And so grief, as many of you I'm sure are realizing, is incredibly stressful. It takes a lot of energy, makes you feel all kinds of pressure. And so that, again, compounds, is amplified. You can feel like there's something wrong with you during this time of year. And give me just 1 second. I'm just going to pause the recording here. Pardon me. Okay, sorry about that. I had somebody come in to take advantage of another one of our programs, so there's no really convenient time to do a recording like this, so appreciate your patience. So getting back to the presentation, talking about stress, and I'll go ahead and move on to demands. Um, this is a time when you can feel expected to be certain places or to do certain things. I think especially of the traditions that maybe you've always been a part of. And so that can definitely add to the stress and the pressure that you're feeling. Uh, and one of the things that we had talked about in the group were the expectations that are put on you and how important the word no is. I think that Will had said that no is a one-word sentence. Um, and it's a good reminder that that can be a really important word to say during this time. Of course, you can say it in a number of different ways, but it's oftentimes a good thing to scale back during this time, especially in terms of the expectations that are put on you, to focus on the kinds of things that you enjoy and that are meaningful to you. Because, having lost your loved one, especially going through the holiday season, it's a time when you need to focus on your own needs to start there, because if you don't, then you're probably going to burn out. And others in your life may or may not understand that. Hopefully they do. But they can continue on with their traditions and those kinds of things with you participating in a different way, or in some cases not participating. Okay, here are some things that we have come up with for coping with the holidays. One of the big ones is planning ahead. Around this time of year, I may be on the phone with a lot of different people, and they're talking about their spouse or their parent who died or whoever it is, and talking about how the holidays are going to be difficult. And one of my first questions is often, all right, so what's your plan? And some people have a more of a prepared answer than others, because we don't think to plan ahead. We don't think about, we just think we're just going to sort of cross that bridge when we get there. That usually doesn't work out very well. And so I encourage you, to plan ahead. And by the time this video is posted, unfortunately, you won't have much time at all, if any, until Christmas or the new year. But you may have a little bit, especially for the new year. So, you can think ahead, or maybe apply this to future holidays or special days. How are you going to make it through this day? I encourage you to think about something meaningful that you can do to honor and remember your loved one, to acknowledge their loss. Encourage you to not spend the entire day by yourself. And so you can think about people you can call or get together with. Um, Maybe you need to stay busy the whole day, or maybe you need to scale back and slow down, but just to make that plan ahead of time. And also, as Will pointed out, then when others invite you or expect you to come to different get togethers, you can say, no, you know what, I've actually already got plans. And you can say that honestly and with confidence. Um, that can feel more comfortable than just saying, I don't want to, or I don't feel like it, for some people. Seeking out support. I mentioned this earlier, but now is the time to seek out support more than ever. Even if you feel like you're bringing others down, hopefully you can take an honest look at those in your life who are really there for you and who you would be there for them. You've just got that kind of relationship, and you can talk with them, vent about what you're going through, maybe ask to get together with them, get together for coffee or whatever it is. Bounce ideas off of whatever you may need that support for. Now is the time. Seeking out support groups, like at your local Hospice of Michigan office, that can be another thing to do during this time, especially if you may not have strong support in other areas, or even if you do. Talking about it. And this is something that I guess the stereotype is that men tend to keep things inside, and many of us do. But it's so important to express what you're going through, your thoughts and your feelings in particular. And so, that's where those support people can come in handy, or getting together with a trained mental health professional, or a pastor, or another religious leader, or a mentor, or somebody else in your life who will listen without trying to fix you or talk about themselves. You need to get this out. And another thing that goes along with that, that I don't remember if it's in this presentation or not specifically on the slides, is journaling. That's another way to sort of get it out, to process, whether it's daily journaling or just writing, as one of our volunteers, Ron, who participates in this group, talks about. So avoiding stress, going back to the idea of self-care and saying no. Um, that's going to be really important during this time. If you don't take steps to avoid stress, you're going to be hurting going through this time. So, and along with that is accepting limitations. And uh, one of the things that we discussed in our group was different roles that you may have or that you may used to have had. In your family, with your spouse, it might be that this brother or sister always did this thing, or this mother, or your spouse always just did these kinds of things, and you may feel like you need to do it all now. You may need to take over that role. Others are expecting you to, right? Um, but you need to accept your limitations and say, no, I can't do it all. Especially the first time around, the first few times around, whatever it might be. I can actually do less than I normally can, not to mention those roles that my loved one used to have. And so you may have to scale back and accept that you're human, admit that you're human to others, and ask others to step up or maybe not do things the same way this time around. Creating new rituals that kind of transition nicely, because um, some things are going to have to be different because things are different. Your life looks different. Your relationship with your loved one has, you've lost it, or you might say it's changed drastically. And so this looks different for everyone. That's why the star is there. I want to point out that um, some people I talk with, they feel like they want to uphold as many traditions as possible because changing those traditions is going to compound. It's going to add on to their loss. It's going to, really throw an extra bright spotlight on their person being gone. And now we can't do the things that we want to do. And so they worked hard to uphold those, and that was right for them. For other people, um, trying to do things the same way and not having the person there was a really painful way to go about it. And so they did everything differently. They decided that they were going to go to a different place, be with some different family members, do some different kinds of traditions. And that was what they needed, because that somewhat scaled back the pain that they felt from their loved one not being there and things naturally just not being the same. Okay, maintain good company. Again, going back to self-care and saying no, that's, you might notice that's a big theme. And also that, especially the people who you keep around you, um, you can probably make a list of some of the people in your life who are toxic or who take and take, and maybe you love them, but those aren't the people who you should be around during this time, especially. Encourage you to distance yourselves from those individuals, maybe for an extended time, but especially right now, and to be around people who give to you, and not just presence, but also emotionally, who you can feel comfortable being around, who don't add to the stress. Be gentle, and that is in general, trying to be gentle with others, of course. Anger, lashing out, having a short fuse can be especially true during this time of year with all the stress and the pain that you may be feeling. But being gentle with yourself as well. Don't go too hard on yourself. Be fair to yourself. Um, that's very simple, easily said, but hard to remember. Finding hope. This goes back to the feeling that you may have that things are always going to feel this way, but know that this is probably going to be one of the harder times of your grief journey. And find hope that it's not always going to feel this way. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel less stress, less pain. You're going to make it through this. You're going to enjoy life again. There's a good chance you'll even enjoy Christmas again, or Thanksgiving, or whatever your holiday is. Um, know that that is sort of the natural way of things. As long as you're doing the work, you're going to get better over time. And seeking support and taking care of yourself are a big part of that. And then finding comfort in your faith. This can be a time when maybe you're going to a Christmas Eve service, or some kind of a ceremony for whatever your faith is, and you may struggle with your faith. I think that one of the guys in our group talked about, or maybe it was somebody else I saw recently, talked about how they're really struggling with their faith, because of course the question that is so hard to answer, if possible to answer, how could God let this happen, or however that looks for you. But for others, it's going to be a time when you cling to your faith more closely. And the holidays especially the ones here in December, can be a time to remind you that that God is there, that your faith community is there, and your beliefs, those meaningful traditions, and all of the things that it represents can be especially helpful during this time. I put a star there not because of something that was said about it in the group, so much as there's one more thing that came up in the group, and it was staying busy during the holidays. Now, this is another one of those personal things where it's going to look different for different people, and this may be what you need to do. It may be the opposite of what you need to do. Some people have that go, go, go mentality, and they use it as a way to try to sort of outrun their grief. If I can just stay busy enough, if I can just stay distracted enough, I won't have to go through my grief. But I know as a grief counselor, and Will would attest to this, that you can't outrun your grief forever. You can't put it off to the side forever. It will catch up with you. And in the meantime, or I should say, it will wait for you. And in the meantime, it will affect you in all kinds of negative ways. So I often encourage people to take time intentionally to slow down, to grieve, to cry, to acknowledge your loved one's death. But again, this being an especially hard time, you may need that sort of temporary distraction. And so it's okay to give yourself permission to do that, as long as you are taking your time to grieve throughout the rest of the year, or most of the time, most days. But you need to take breaks, and you may need to take a little bit of an extended break during this time. And so finding ways to occupy yourself, things to go to sort of stay distracted, to get little moments of happiness that you can hold on to, that's okay. And you have my permission to do that. I think that that can be a helpful thing. Okay, we didn't get to this slide in the group, but I'm going to just briefly address it because it's the last one. Taking care of yourself. Go ahead and take inventory of your physical, emotional, mental, social, and spiritual needs, and focus on the ways that you are or may not be taking care of yourself, and really prioritize that during this time. And because we didn't go over it in the group, I won't really get any deeper into this right now. Also, this recording has been going on a little bit extra long because of the longer introduction. So just want to talk briefly about how you can join us next time around. Maybe you missed it last time, maybe you're just stumbling upon this, or somebody shared it with you. So I encourage you, if you can, to join us live, whether that's in person, face-to-face at one of our office locations, or via video chat or phone. Some of the benefits, you can get specific feedback to your problems you may be facing, or you may apply these things to yourself and share that with the group, and that group dynamic can be helpful. You can also participate with others, and there's something that is helpful and healing about that. Maybe you can share something that's helped you, and others can benefit from that, and that can feel good for you too, and that can solidify that in your own journey. There's just something about being with other people live, and having that sort of element of me too. I also feel that and identify with that. You're not the only one, and having that dynamic in person can be healing. And then also, again, you have the option to come to one of our offices and join the online part there, and then stay for a little while afterwards and get connected with others in your local community, including a trained facilitator. How can you do that? You can go to, the most convenient way is to go to hom.org/virtual-touch, and make sure to add that extra / at the end. Otherwise, it won't quite get you there. And we're talking about rebranding as Virtual Connection, our different online Hospice of Michigan groups. But for now, it's Virtual Touch. And so you can go there, and from there, you can register for Men Overcoming Loss. It's pretty easy to find on that page. You can also, and I forgot to put this on the slide, but you can call me at 586-263-8514. I almost forgot for a second there. Or email me at wlawton, so that's WLAWTON, at HOM.org. You can also call Will Gasper at 231-250-7588, I believe is his number. Maybe get in touch with me this time around, because that might not be the right number for him. I'm sorry that I forgot to have this info ready ahead of time. But you can, or you can email him at wgasper, so WGASPER at HOM.org. But we think that the form at the Virtual Touch website that I mentioned at the top of the slide here, that's probably the easiest way. You can just kind of click through some boxes, we'll get the info and we'll follow up with you. The group takes place the third Tuesday of each month. And so that means the next one is going to be January 21st, I believe, from 6 to 7 p.m. And again, a little bit of extra time for those at the offices. And it takes place at those 4 locations you can see. Or you can also participate via Zoom video chat. And if you register, we can get you the info you need about that. You can see the link on the page there. If you want to just jump right to the link, you can type that into your search bar in your web browser, and it'll take you to Zoom and have you download it, and you can join with video chat that way. It's pretty simple if you follow the instructions. Or you can just join via telephone. We've had a few guys take advantage of this. Their faces are not shared in the group. And also it might be a little bit more, it might feel more accessible to those who, pardon me, are not comfortable with video chat from a technology standpoint. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And thank you so much for watching this, and feel free to kind of skip around or take note or refer back. Hope this will be a valuable resource for you moving forward, and we'll hope you will join us live in the future or take advantage of other recordings in the future as well. So take good care, and I hope that your holiday season is or was as meaningful as it could be, and as good as it can be, and that you continue moving forward on your grief journey, and that I hope that it is easier and more meaningful and more special, more enjoyable next time around as well. Thank you.